preparing to live stream the meeting.
Okay, go ahead and share your slides and then we can get started.
Great. And then I also need to admit everybody.
Are there people in the waiting room?
People in the waiting room, yeah.
Sweet. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Transfer Admissions Masterclass. If you could please remain muted until the Q&A section at the very end. This is being broadcast on YouTube, and if you are on YouTube, we are going to be keeping track of all of the comments that come in and any questions that you may have. So be sure to stick around for the end for all of your questions to be answered. So welcome to today's masterclass hosted by Accepted Consulting. Katie Ibsen, my partner in crime here, is going to be the one presenting today. I'm just going to quickly do a little introduction about Accepted and then hand it off to her.
Right.
All right, so just a little bit about Accepted Consulting. Accepted Consulting is an academic consulting firm that focuses on providing services and support for students from community college through to grad school and postgraduate study. We focus on admissions resources as well as have an academic community known as Accepted Society, where we bring people together and provide templates. We provide consulting services, document review services in order to help you achieve your academic goals. One of our main missions is to provide access to higher education for first-generation students who otherwise have not had an opportunity or the information to get ahead in the academic world. And we're going to go ahead and hand it off to Miss Ibsen.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. First of all, here is what we are going to be going over today in our master class. We're going to begin with a little bit of background about me and my personal transfer journey, how I ended up where I am today. Then we're going to talk a little bit about selecting your programs, planning your community college coursework, and the application process. So first of all, hi, my name is Katie. I'm the lead transfer consultant here at Accepted Consulting. I provide one-on-one consultations for those who are looking to transfer from community college or from a four-year university to another four-year university. I got my associates in arts to transfer in anthropology from Sacramento City College, and I am currently studying anthropology at UC Berkeley. I am a rising senior at the moment. So a little bit more about how I ended up where I am today. I did not do very well in high school. I had some unfortunate life circumstances that led me to get poor grades and not really engage very well in my high school career. And at that point, when I was a junior in high school, I did not even bother applying to colleges because I didn't have the GPA for it, and I was really just not interested in going to college. I ended up taking a gap year where I then saw a lot of my friends going to community college and thought that that might be an option for me, so I signed up again at Sacramento City College. I actually had a bit of a rough start in community college. I failed one of my classes and got a C in the other in my first semester. And it wasn't until I found my passion in anthropology that I started to do better and I started getting engaged in my community college campus. It was also through being engaged on my community college campus that I was able to find a lot of extracurricular opportunities, such as volunteering in a museum, volunteering doing archaeology, being a part of the honor society, so on and so forth. So after becoming a lot more engaged in my community college experience and improving my grades, my GPA, gaining professional experience and getting a lot of extracurriculars under my belt, I did ultimately end up applying to 5 of the universities of California and getting accepted to all of the ones that I applied to, and then decided to go to UC Berkeley. So let's talk a little bit about why someone might choose to go to community college. There are a lot of reasons, and I think that community college is a fantastic option for all of us non-traditional students out there. It really provides access to what can be an inaccessible education. So one of the biggest factors is cost. So here on the slide, you can see like nearly 25% of what is categorized as middle class students don't go on to college because of the cost. But community colleges are subsidized and funded by the federal government, which gives us the option to access a cheaper less expensive education that is still rated at the same quality as other institutions, which is why your units would transfer. So when it comes to the average cost of attending a four-year university, it can be anywhere from the tens to the $30,000 range, but at community college, the average cost is about $3,600. Another reason, which is one of the reasons why I went to community college, is your grades. If you didn't achieve your academic success in high school and again didn't achieve the grades that you needed to go into a four-year university as a freshman, then community college offers a really great alternative to help you get back on track with your grades, improve your study skills, improve your academic writing, your critical thinking, your critical reading, all of those things. Community college also provides an opportunity to study a variety of subjects and also provides the flexibility for you to do it on your own schedule. So when I went into community college, I didn't know what I wanted to study, and I poked around a little bit and tried a variety of different things before settling on on anthropology. And then I was also able to take classes either online or after hours because I also had a job and required flexibility. Lastly is commitment. Now, if you're anything like I was and failing out of high school, then you might not have felt ready to go to a four-year university, and I know I definitely didn't. I didn't really understand the college system. I didn't even know what the difference between a BA and a BS or even a master's or a PhD was. And so I really did not feel ready to step into that world yet. I knew that community college would provide me an opportunity to transition a little bit more smoothly from high school into a four-year university. Additionally, community colleges offer a lot of pathways from community college to a four-year university, such as the Transfer Admission Guarantee Program with the California Community Colleges and the UCs, as well as just any associates to transfer program that community colleges might offer. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about what coursework looks like in community college in terms of transferring. So in general, there are requirements for community college coursework, either if you're going to get your associates or your associates to transfer or just transfer in general. Typically, most universities and institutions will have a unit requirement, and that's typically around 60 semester units. Here on the slide that we did include CSU and UC major requirements because many of our clients that we work with choose to transfer to a UC and a CSU. But we do also work with other with clients who are trying to transfer to other universities, such as out-of-state universities or private institutions. But the point remains that your coursework in community college is very important for where you want to go when you transfer, because you're going to be getting your lower division units and your major requirements out of the way in community college. Additionally, we do offer transcript evaluation. So if you're in community college and looking to transfer, you can come to us and start off with a preliminary consultation, and then we can take a look at your transcripts to see where you might need to fill out some requirements. So when it comes to the timeline of doing a transfer, there are three major categories in the timeline or sections. The first is pre-application, then you have your actual application, and then you have the decisions. So when it comes to your pre-application, that's when you're going to start gathering the materials that you're going to need to submit when the application season comes around. You're also going to want to discuss your plans with professors or with a transfer advisor or with somebody here at Accepted Consulting like me to figure out whether or not, like we've said, your transcript reflects what you're going to need in terms of requirements. It's also important to start talking to your professors in the pre-application section because you might need to gather letters of recommendation if you're applying to institutions that require that. Again, make sure that you fulfilled all the necessary course requirements, so your general education, your unit requirements, as well as your major requirements. This is also a really good time to start familiarizing yourself with the application, knowing what kind of information you're going to need, including your demographic and background information, as well as looking at the prompts for the essays if they are available. Next, you're going to be moving into the application phase. So with the application, some of the components that you're going to be needing are all of your transcripts from all of the schools that you've attended, including most universities will ask for your high school transcripts, so high school and all of the community colleges that you've attended. This is also the time that you're going to want to start drafting your essays, which again, if you are having difficulty brainstorming your essays or you need somebody to review them, you can always come find us at Accepted. Once you have drafted your essays, it is so important to revise that material with a friend, a consultant, an advisor, somebody that you trust who can look over your essay with you and figure out what parts that you need to strengthen and how to explain the parts of your application that need to be explained. Lastly, if you are a student applying in the United States, submitting your FAFSA application as soon as possible. The FAFSA is the application for financial aid, and it is absolutely 100% something you should fill out even if you don't think you're going to receive financial aid. The universities can't know unless you fill it out, so definitely do that. Then lastly is the decisions section, the most exciting and probably most nerve-wracking section of applying to a university for transfer. Decision dates do vary from university to university, but once you get your decisions back, what you're going to want to do is, first of all, review the programs, whether or not those are like programs that you actually want to be a part of. Review your financial aid letter. Financial aid was a huge part of why I ended up going where I do go. And then again, weigh your decisions carefully. Think about the area that you're going to be in, the city that you're living in. How far away is it from your support system? Are you going to be able to afford to live in that area? Again, reviewing your financial aid letter. And if you're still having difficulty weighing this decision, you can always, again, find us here at Accepted. So getting a little bit more into the details, the components of your application. So first of all, the essays. And in my opinion, the essays are probably the most important part of a transfer application. There are a variety of types of essays that you might be asked to write. Some universities might ask you to write one long personal statement, or a couple of shorter essays, or one long personal statement with supplemental essays. So there's a lot of variety. The next thing, like I said, is going to need your transcripts from all of the institutions that you have attended. Make sure that you're reading the fine print of your application at each university, just to make sure that you know exactly what requirements they are asking for. Thirdly, you're going to want to ask for letters of recommendation if those are required from the university that you're applying to. And you're going to want the person writing your letter of recommendation to discuss things like your qualities as a student, how you solve your problems, maybe asking somebody that you've participated in projects with or you've had a lot of engagement with, talking about your work ethic, how you performed as a student, and then personal details, again, about how you operate in the academic world. Then lastly, like I said, when you're writing your essays, you might be asked to write some supplementals. Those can consist of a variety of things. It could be written samples, diversity statements, why you want to go to this university. Again, check the fine print of your application so you know exactly what the university is asking from you. Now we have a little section here about personal statements versus personal insight questions, or just personal statements versus the shorter essays that you might be asked to write. When it comes to personal statements, it's typically a 500 to 1,000 word essay. Like I said, it's a little bit longer, and it's typically going to be for private institutions or out-of-state institutions. Then we also have included here the personal insight questions from UCs, which again are, we included that because we do get a lot of clients who are looking to apply to transfer to the UCs, but again, it applies to all universities that are asking for shorter essays. These are going to be a little bit more succinct and more focused on one particular topic. Now, when it comes to the structure of writing a personal statement, this is probably the most important information in this masterclass, talking about the essays and how you want to write them. So a personal statement, when you're writing a longer essay, the 500 to 1,000 word essay, you're going to want to start with your purpose section. What is it that you're studying and why are you studying it? What is it about that major and that field of study that is important to you and why are you passionate about it? Make sure that you're making some connections to your major by exploring maybe a personal anecdote that you can share that connects your personal experiences to the reason why you're studying in this field of study. You can also provide background information and anything that is important that has been impactful in your life that you find significant to include, that it kind of explains and contextualizes yourself as an applicant. Lastly, there's the why this school section, which is where you're going to discuss why exactly you're applying to this university. Now, if you are applying using a personal statement and it is just one application for that one specific school, I would definitely recommend using that university-specific language, but sometimes you might have to fill out an application that goes to multiple campuses. In that event, I would say to talk about why you want to pursue higher education, but not necessarily naming the school. So for example, in the UC personal insight questions, I would recommend against mentioning that. And then here we've included the personal insight questions required prompt. And just to give you an example of what a prompt might look like when you're writing your transfer applications. I want to include this one specifically because it asks you the question like about your major, and it kind of sounds like they're asking you to convince them of all the classes that you've ever taken that would make you a good applicant for this major. When in reality, what most universities want to hear from you in your transfer application essays is going to be who you are as a person, who you are as an academic, and how your personal life experiences are connected to your major, and how going to this university is going to help you achieve your future goals. Now, there are some do's and don'ts when it comes to writing your transfer essays. So let's start off with some don'ts and move into the do's. So when you're writing your essays, you do not want to leave your application to the last minute. I made this mistake in 2018 and I left my application to like the last 3 weeks before the deadline. And I ended up writing very poorly written, generic, in no way told the universities who I was as a person essays. So make sure that you're leaving yourself plenty of time to brainstorm how you want to respond to these prompts, to draft your essays, and then also have somebody review it. So in that sense, you also don't want to submit work that you haven't proved. Make sure that you are having somebody look over your essays, looking for cohesiveness, for flow, for grammar, and sentence structure. Lastly, do not submit a generic statement. Like I said, in 2018, my essays were rejected because I was writing very generic essays that did not come from a unique perspective, and also what I call the resume essay, where I just listed the things that I had done, instead of creating a narrative about how I came to my major and why I care so much about it. On the other side, things that you should do give yourself plenty of time to prepare for the application season. It can be daunting, especially if you are applying to multiple universities that each have different requirements. So you want to make sure that you are giving yourself time to prepare all of the needed materials for each individual university you're going to apply to. Do create a strategy for applying to the university. So like I said, starting to brainstorm your essay topics, maybe during the summer or early in the fall, and also coming to a transfer advisor or consultant like me at Accepted, where we can sit down and look over your transcript and create a plan and a timeline for your application. Lastly, seek a proofreader, or at the very least, read your essays out loud to yourself to make sure you are catching those grammatical mistakes, looking for, like I said, flow and sentence structure. So let's talk a little bit about thinking ahead. Now that we've covered a lot of what the application looks like, the timeline of the application, and then the structure of your essays, let's start thinking ahead. What are you going to do when you start getting your admissions decisions back and you're going to head into your brand new transfer university? So the first thing that I recommend is to start looking for scholarships. Look for scholarships really early. Many deadlines are soon after the transfer acceptances have been released. So if you are somebody who wants to take advantage of scholarships, it is very important to be doing that research even shortly after you've submitted your application, just so you have an idea of what scholarships are available through which universities, and you can start drafting your essays and applications for those. Next, my next suggestion is to review. Do not be afraid to review your previous coursework in preparation for your transfer, for your upper division coursework. What you're learning in community college is the foundation that you will build off of once you're in your upper divisions at your transfer university. But if you're like me and it took you a couple of extra years to get through community college, that information might not be as fresh as it once was. That's totally okay. My biggest recommendation, just flip through your textbooks, look at some of your old notes, review recorded lectures if you have them, just so you can refresh your memory and be ready to go when the next semester at your new university starts. Lastly is to start looking for your community. I started finding community by joining Facebook groups, looking for people on Instagram, and then also browsing university-sponsored community events. As a transfer student, you are going to be coming in as a junior, or most typically as a junior, and you're going to be dropped into a group of people who mostly already know each other. So it's really important to start looking for community so that you're not suffering from a lot of the effects of transfer shock. And I find one of the best ways to do that is, again, by looking at your university's transfer center, transfer sponsored events, finding the Facebook groups for transfer students so you can start communicating with each other, building community. And I also love seeing who's going to be in my classes in the fall so we can start forming study groups and getting to know each other before classes start. Lastly, I want to give you some more information on our transfer admissions team. If you yourself are looking to get a consultation and you're in your transfer journey, I myself offer transfer consultations, as does Kaylin. I am the lead transfer consultant, and Kaylin focuses on humanities and the social sciences. Kaylin is also the founder of Accepted Consulting. If you're interested in our services, we offer a wide variety of things. We do have just consultations where we can do a document review. We can talk one-on-one about your plans, discuss your application, and really line out, like I said, strategize how you're going to apply to your universities. We also have Accepted Society, which is a community of like-minded academics from around the world, and we offer things through Accepted Society, such as accountability workshops, networking nights, as well as one-on-one mentorship with people like Kaylin Grace-Apple, the founder of Accepted. Then we also offer full application review. This is a package where you can get 3 to 4 consultations and then 1 to 2 full application reviews, including the review of your documents. So if you really need help and want help on your application, on your journey from community college to your four-year university, we also offer that. All right, so that wraps up about everything I was going to say. So next we are going to transition into the Q&A section. And also thank you everybody for sticking around through the end of this presentation. Here we have a 5% off discount code if you'd like to schedule yourself a consultation. And I'm going to stop my screen share and start the Q&A section. Let's see. I was checking YouTube to see if there were any comments. Kaylin, do you have any questions? Get us started?
Yeah, so I actually have a question about the kind of private versus public process. So obviously with the UCs, there's a relationship between the University of California and the CSUs, but are there relationships one with other states? And then also what is the process of if you wanted to apply to a public university, but it's in another state?
Sure. So there are often, it depends on your community college, it depends on where you are, but often there are transfer agreements between community colleges and other universities. Just off the top of my head, for example, the community college that I went to also has a transfer agreement with USC, which is a private institution in Southern California. As far as the application process for applying to a private institution, Kaylin, I know that you've worked with a lot of people applying to private institutions. Is there anything that you want to focus on specifically?
Yeah. So when you're applying out of state to so let's say I'm in California, I want to apply to the University of Virginia. So you're going to want to check on their website to make sure that you are going to send in an application through, say, the Common App, or whether you're going to be required to go through the general processes similar to the UC. So if there's another type of university system. So this varies depending on the state. So like the SUNY system in New York or the UCs typically have their own private application process, whereas other universities may have their enrollment through the Common App or the Coalition app. I personally recommend the Common App. And then for private institutions, it's somewhat the same. So private institutions are often going to be found on the Common App, in which case you're going to have usually a personal statement and maybe supplemental essays.
I have a question about financial aid. With private universities, do they have scholarships or FAFSA? Most private institutions do have scholarships. I think most universities offer scholarships. Whether or not you have to apply to them is another question. I know that there are some universities that automatically consider you for scholarships based on merit and other factors that are part of your application. but some universities might also require supplemental applications for scholarships. As far as private universities accepting FAFSA, I'm pretty sure that most universities, if not all universities in the United States, do take federal financial aid because it's offered by the federal government per each individual student.
Yeah, so FAFSA is something that is required by all accredited universities to accept through their financial aid office. So it's really important to fill out those FAFSA forms early. It also makes you eligible for grants, in addition to other types of funding, including loans.
That was what I was going to say next. Is the FAFSA also makes loans available to you, and typically federal subsidized loans too, which are better, in my opinion, than private unsubsidized loans because they have a lower what's that word?
Interest rate.
Interest rate. Thank you.
Just got a question on YouTube. It says, it's from Samantha, and she says, how early is too early to start applying for transfer scholarships? And do you have any tips for streamlining the process?
Applying for transfer scholarships, that's a great question. It depends on which scholarship you're applying for. Each scholarship is going to have its own open and end dates. So making sure that you're searching for those scholarships and knowing, like I said, having a strategy, knowing when things are due. However, I don't think it's ever too early to start looking and see which scholarships are available at which universities. So if you have a strong inkling that you're going to use your transfer agreement between you and another university, then you can go to that university and look at what scholarships that they offer, and that way you can really get started on working on that application. So I don't think it's ever too early to start working on them, and then once you get your admission decisions back, then you can say, okay, now I know which scholarships I need to submit to. What was the other part of the question?
How do you streamline the process? So tips for streamlining, finding scholarships, those types of things.
Well, I think one of the first things that I would do is come to Accepted Consulting and meet with one of our consultants, because we can help you figure out scholarship searches, editing your essays, and we can really work together on figuring out what your deadlines and due dates are. Additionally, I would say, like doing your research, taking a minute to sit down and really looking at when all of the due dates are. If you have universities that have similar prompts or similar types of essays, using your essay as kind of I would say like using a basic draft of your essay and then jumping off from there to alter it to fit the needs of each individual application is another thing that you could do. Personally, I applied to the UCs, which is just one essay for all of the campuses. So that's how I streamlined mine. I did not really streamline my scholarship applications because what I put on the slide is learned from personal experience. Kaylin, do you have any tips?
Yeah, so when you're trying to go through scholarships, one thing that I would recommend is there's basically 3 different avenues that I would look at. Universities, so the universities that you're planning to apply. Scholarship Owl, so what's the other one? College Board has a list of different scholarships that are available to undergraduate students and transfers. And then also to look at local scholarships. So depending on where you're from, what passport you hold, what communities you're from, et cetera, there are other types of scholarships available. So for example, there's the Silicon Valley Institute for students in the Bay Area. If you went to a particular high school or if you've been at a particular community college, they also have scholarships available in those ways. So look at your community college and local community. And then the third, and like I said, also there's the scholarship, also looking at other private scholarships. I know there was a question about PhDs, so we're not going to be addressing anything about graduate study in this particular presentation. We offer a graduate admissions masterclass, and I offer graduate admissions consultations. So anything in relation to graduate school, we're going to be focusing on that with those particular resources, not during this particular talk. We have a question from Hannah, which says, what is the Common App versus the app with the university, public and private?
I know the Common App is essentially like a portal of an application that you can fill out that is a way to send that application to participating universities. So if I remember correctly, it's something like there's like 900 universities that participate in the Common Application. And I think that the Common Application really is more of a portal where you can go in there, look at the university and see what they're requiring you to submit. So it's more of like what's the word I'm looking for? An umbrella to hold all of the other like all the universities. So that way you don't have to go to each individual university's website and figure out exactly what it is they're asking for, or have to like log into multiple portals. I'm not, Kaylin, do you want to address the second half of that question?
So in terms of the application for universities, public versus private. So honestly, every university is different, whether it's public, private, liberal arts, et cetera. All of them have their own different systems and processes that they're going to be using in order to decide what they want from each student. So for example, you can be applying to the University of Virginia, you can be applying to the University of Connecticut, and they may both ask for a personal statement, but they may also ask for different supplemental essays. They may be asking for different pieces of your transcript. So it's important to look at the fine print and look at each university that you're wanting to apply to. And then my recommendation is to meet with Katie and to have a consultation with her to figure out which programs are right for you. So that way you can figure out what components you're going to need and streamline the process, because oftentimes you do not have to write all 15 essays separately or whatever number you're going to be submitting. You can also streamline that process so that way you're not doing additional work. One question was how to maximize chances for getting a scholarship. Katie, do you want to take this one?
That's a good question that I think you might be better equipped to answer. However, I do know that filling out the FAFSA, again, makes your financial information available to the universities that you're applying to, so definitely applying to that. And then there are a lot of universities that use your application as a application for the like merit and prestigious scholarships that they offer. In terms of maximizing your chances of getting a scholarship, the best that I've been able to do is work on my GPA and have extracurriculars. But Kaylin, if you have more tips, I'd be happy to hear them.
It's all in the essays. I would say with any admissions process or receiving grant funding or scholarships at whatever level you're at, the essays are key in order to get your foot in the door. You have to be able to differentiate yourself from the other candidates and be able to stand out. So that's just what we help students do in terms of helping with the consultations and everything. So thinking about what the questions that they're asking and seeing how it is that you can structure your essays so that way you stand out. All right, we have some questions over in the YouTube chat, so I'm going to go over there and then we'll jump back to the ones in the main Zoom room. Right. What do you recommend for students who are transferring to UCs from a community college and are afraid of the quarter system and are nervous about their GPA being destroyed?
That is a really good question, a totally valid concern. For me, when I was addressing that concern, I decided to go to a university that offered the semester system. So I went from a semester system to another semester system. So I would actually be interested to hear Kaylin's input on this, because I know, Kaylin, you went from a semester system to a quarter system, correct?
I did. So I went to UCLA and they were on the quarter system. Luckily, I had been at 4 different community colleges, 2 of which were semester system and the other 2 were on the quarter system. So I was somewhat used to the pace. It's really not that different. The main difference is honestly the actual like coursework and the requirements that are needed for the actual assignments and the way that they're graded. So in terms of pace, my recommendation is to make sure that if there is a class that you get into and you do not enjoy, leave. Go find something else. Quickly find other classes to join in on. This is a mistake I made my first quarter at UCLA. I took a class that I knew the first day it wasn't going to be the right class for me, but I stayed in it because it was a prereq. And I wish I'd just done that prereq the next semester or the next quarter rather. So make sure that you're looking at all your options and make sure you don't stay in any classes that you really feel you're going to suffer in. And
also, if I could just throw in my 2 cents, being in a semester system, there does come a point in the 16 weeks of a semester system where you're just kind of tired and the semester keeps dragging on. So you might find that the faster pace of a quarter system might be a little bit more interesting and less exhausting than it is in a semester system. That's just something that I've noticed.
Yeah, I definitely found that to be my experience. I don't actually find them to be that different, other than the quarter system is just over quicker. All right, so Hannah said, if someone took a bunch of different classes, not sure what they wanted to do with their life, if they have more than 6 units, is it possible to transfer easily to one's dream study or degree with a few general education classes not met? So I'll just quickly make one broad statement, then I'm going to hand it off to Katie. It is almost impossible to transfer to a university without your general ed credits having been satisfied. Primarily because the kind of purpose for those universities is that you finish the general requirements in order to then jump straight into the major once you get in. So it's really important to get those units, to get those courses checked out. Additionally, I would talk to either a transfer advisor or Katie and do a transcript evaluation, because there are some classes that are not going to transfer. Even if you've taken a bunch of different random prereqs, I took like 75 plus units, I think, but only 60 of them actually transferred, because my written, like I took a creative writing course, I took a film course, those didn't transfer. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. If you have not met your general education requirements, whatever it is on your community college or the university's requirements, it's going to be very difficult to transfer. You're going to have a hard time making a case for yourself, and they might actually just throw out your application without looking at the rest of it if you haven't met those general education requirements. Because like Kaylin said, the purpose of community college is to make sure that you have your English, your math, your critical thinking, your social sciences requirements, whatever it is, done so that you can focus on your major and your upper division courses. That being said, though, if you do have more than 60 units, like Kaylin said, that not all of them will transfer, but also a lot of universities cap the amount of units that will transfer. So when I transferred, I had something like 85 units, but UC Berkeley capped my transferable units to 70. So even though I had 80 transferable units, I only have 70 on my transcript at Berkeley, meaning that, I'm not going to get into my upper division courses and be forced to graduate early because I have too many units. So most universities will cap the amount of units that transfer.
Absolutely. And then somebody asked, are the questions coming from another source? Yes. So we offer these master classes through Accepted Consulting, and we offer this on Zoom. So we have some members that are joining us on Zoom, and then we are also broadcasting this live on YouTube. And then we'll jump back into this chat. Can my personal statement be major and other volunteer work I've done, or would it be more than that?
So your personal statement should consist of a couple of different sections. Like we said, there's going to be the why this university section, some background information on who you are in your life and how you got to where you are today. Then you do want to have that personal anecdote. If that volunteer work is what it is for you, that's what it was for me, to connect to your major, because you definitely do want to talk about what your purpose is in pursuing this major and pursuing upper division coursework and pursuing your transfer. So talking about your major is definitely a part of a personal statement. And I think that talking about volunteer work and extracurricular work is important to discuss in an essay, as long as it is significant and impactful to you and your life. So I talked about my volunteer archaeology work, but because that was the aha moment that I had in my life that made me want to continue pursuing anthropology. And that's why I included it on my essay, because it was impactful and significant.
Yes. You did include the relevant details that you believe are going to make you stand out as a candidate. So that's what we're here to do. Myself, Katie, everyone on the team at Accepted, we are here to help you actually craft those statements and make sure that you're making a connection to the committee, that they know that you are a candidate that they want to accept. All right. And then over in the chat, someone said that they didn't know that Berkeley is on the semester system. I think Berkeley and what is it, Merced?
Merced, yeah.
Yeah, and Berkeley and Merced are the only UC schools that are on the semester system. And then do you become IGETC certified by the end of fall semester, or can you still be certified by the end of spring? I believe you primarily need to be IGETC certified by the time you enter a UC.
Yeah, so the way the application works is you might not necessarily be fully IGETC certified by the time that you apply in your fall semester. But in January, you do transfer academic update, I believe was what it's called, where you have to go into the applications again, and you have to tell them what classes you've enrolled for in the spring. So you're telling the universities hey, on good faith, here are the classes I'm taking that I'm going to be completing by the end of the spring semester. So I know I had a couple of requirements I had to get out of the way, which I did in my spring semester. That being said, though, if you are a little bit behind in terms of your requirements, there are some universities that will accept spring admissions. So transferring to the CSUs, the California State Universities, they also have application rounds in the spring. Again, it varies from university to university, but that is an option.
What do you recommend if people are applying through the Common App and are choosing different majors for different UCs? Should you mention that your essay, you're choosing different majors? I'm going to let you go with this one.
Sure. So just real quick, I think that you mean like if you're applying through the UC application, because the UCs have their own application that's separate from the common application. But if you are applying with different majors to different universities, then the required prompt could be a little bit tricky. But typically what I've seen is that most people are applying with similar majors. And so then instead of talking about your major specifically, I would talk again about like that aha moment that you've had or some kind of experience that you've had that's related to these majors that you're applying for, and talking more about what you want to do with that type of education and like career goals rather than specifically like, I love anthropology because you can say, I really want to work with this group of people, or I want to work in this type of science because I've had this experience, and transferring to university is going to help me do that.
Yeah, and you also want to indicate, I don't know why it's echoing so bad. You also don't want to indicate which schools. So you're not going to be writing specifically for like, I am applying to UC Berkeley because X, Y, and Z. You would want to make sure that you're making them very general. So this is something that Katie is expert in. She works on a bunch of UC applications and those personal insight questions. And the main point for the UCs is making sure that you use all 4 essays in order to paint a broad picture of who you are as an individual. Is there an age limit on the SATs or other types of standardized tests? Is there any age limit on applying to a bachelor's degree? Nope.
Nope.
Not at all.
A lot of universities don't even require SATs or ACTs for transfer students. So
yes, unless you apply to private institutions.
Right.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I had people in my cohort at UCLA who were in their 60s when they were applying to transfer. So there is no age limit. Education is entirely your own path. So whatever age you are at and you hit the requirements, doesn't matter. You can still transfer. You can still go get a college degree.
Yeah, my best Berkeley friend is in her 40s and she transferred just last year.
Yeah, and also with there was a question about somebody who wanted to apply for certain schools applying for education versus applying for psychology. This is where you're going to tell more of a broad story about yourself rather than indicating a specific type of program. However, it is a lot easier in order to streamline your essays if you have a direct path that you're trying to head down. So making sure that you're indicating certain types of methods and different types of work that you're wanting to be doing is a lot easier when you're kind of going into similar programs. Additionally, there's other things like other requirements that are going to make it a little bit more challenging to apply to a variety of programs. That being said, we've had clients that are applying to different types of programs, for example, poli-sci versus foreign relations, et cetera. So there's various pathways you can go down.
If I could share a little secret that I've learned in my time as being a transfer mentor at UC Berkeley, something that you can do if you do fulfill the requirements for multiple majors, that you've done that coursework at your community college, you can always apply with one major and then change your major once you've been accepted. That's something that people don't think about. You can do that as a transfer student. It might be a little bit more difficult if you haven't completed that lower division coursework that's been required, but if you have, it's totally possible.
Is there a time limit on general education classes to be met? Are there certain classes that are needed to be taken at the same time to be able to transfer to one or more schools?
Well, for the first one, I think that there are some limits in terms of whether or not your units are still transferable, but it's more of like over a decade kind of thing. So, making sure that you're in communication with your community college to make sure that your units are still viable, and then again making sure that the universities you're applying to accept those units as transferable units.
Can a university kick you out for changing your major? Honestly, one of the only, there's very few reasons a university will expel you. Plagiarism and other types of actual criminal offenses are reason for having violated university guidelines and for being expelled. Changing your major is actually quite common. So no, there is no punishment. All right, so we've now reached the end of the questions for today. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much to Katie for running her first solo masterclass. Congratulations.
Thank
And
you. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for the questions too. Those were all really amazing questions.
this is going to be left on Katie's YouTube channel. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to her by email or set up a consultation with her. If you have any additional questions about it, Accepted in general, please feel free to send a message through the website and our admin will take care of all of incoming messages. So thank you all so much for joining today and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.